bird law in this country? It's not governed by reason.
There's no such thing as bird law.
Yes, there is.
You know what?
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado.
And I am Dan Simon, coming to you also live from the Studio Simon Stumper headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky.
Dan, good morning. Hello, how are you?
I am fantastic. Paul, how are you today?
It's summertime. I get to talk about one of my favorite regions of the country, which is the Mid-Atlantic, the Delmarva Peninsula. The word Delmarva derives from Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. It's one of my favorite geographic signifiers for any minor league baseball team. So I'm excited to be talking about this one.
I was at the beach in Delaware last year. I was at Rehoboth Beach, where a certain president is known to frequent. Is that in Delmarva?
Yes. If you were in Delaware, especially out there on the shore, you had a very good chance of being on the peninsula because most of Delaware is, in fact, on the peninsula. One of my favorite alternate identities in the minor league baseball food frenzy is the Delmarva Scrapple, which is based on, obviously, this terrible meat. Growing up in New Jersey, surely you are familiar with Scrapple?
Well, interestingly, even though that's, I guess, a Jersey thing, I am familiar with it. I've had it once, but at least where I lived, which was North Jersey, it wasn't a thing up there. Or at least I wasn't going to the kind of eateries that serve that kind of stuff. But I did have it once. I remember not particularly enjoying it.
Yeah, well, it's not that good, but it is a cultural staple. One of our guests later on this episode is going to be Ranger Amy Burnett, who you well know because we just got back from a road trip together. We had a really fun baseball-intensive road trip in Georgia with the Braves, and then your Columbus Clingstones, and then your Rome Emperors. And we got to talk to Ranger Amy a lot on that trip. And one of her favorite subjects is birds. So we're going to have Ranger Amy back on this episode to talk about shorebirds. This, to my knowledge, is the only logo in all of sports based on the great blue heron.
If you say so. I did the identities for the baseball winter meetings for 12 straight years, going back about 10 years or so since the last one I did. The winter meetings would take place in Orlando basically every fourth or fifth year. And one of the years that I did the Orlando winter meetings, I started designing the logo for it that had a blue heron. Was it a blue heron or a white heron? It was a heron regardless in it. It didn't make it to the final logo, which ended up featuring an alligator, but the heron did make it to other elements of that event identity system. So there was a heron in a baseball design, but not a team.
Well, they are a very distinctive bird, so it's I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that. Dan, we're also going to be talking with Chris Bidders of the Delmarva Shorebirds themselves, obviously. That'll be the first interview that we have coming up. So let's jump into the interviews, Dan, and then, as always, you'll hang out, and we'll meet you at the end for a Studio Simon Stumper.
Okay, looking forward to being back in a bit.
I am so pleased to have Chris Bidders, who is the general manager with the Delmarva Shorebirds on Baseball by Design. Chris, good morning. Hello, how you doing?
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, this is fun for me to revisit my native Mid-Atlantic part of the country here. This is there's a lot of sort of fun stuff to talk about. Listeners of this podcast will know I was born and raised in the Philadelphia area, went to school in Richmond, Virginia, up and down I-95 there, up that corridor. So this is fun for me to talk about. You've got some fun, sort of local, regional stuff going on. Before we get into shorebirds, let's get into Delmarva. What is the Delmarva Peninsula?
Yeah, so when I moved here, I didn't know what Delmarva was either. I knew of the team and didn't understand the name or the region that it was. But with the Shorebirds, we're on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and as you noted, we're on a peninsula. Some would argue it's an island because of the river at the top of Delaware, but we span 3 states on the Delmarva Peninsula. We're a few miles from the Delaware border. Random story: my kids went to a Maryland elementary school, and they went to a Delaware middle school and high school. Because we live in Delmar, which is literally on the state line. And then on the eastern shore of Virginia, the folks down there get slighted a lot because when you look at the Virginia logo as a state, a lot of times they leave off the little tip that is on the Delmarva Peninsula. And so our friends down on the eastern shore of Virginia as well. So, we make up Delaware, all of the state of Delaware, basically, and then the eastern shore of Maryland, and then the tip of the peninsula is Virginia. And so we span the 3 states, which is your Delmarva. So it's a cool place that is unique in that not only do we span markets, but we span actual states.
Yeah, that's really fun to me, right? Like Delmarva, and it's so obvious, and you can't unhear it once it's out there. Obviously, the shore itself is such a huge part of the culture there. Listeners of this podcast have heard me talk about the Jersey Shore a number of times. Growing up in Philadelphia, we'd go down to Ocean City. When you talk about a shorebird, what is a shorebird?
So the shorebird, the name originated from when the team relocated here. The team was originally an Expos affiliate in the very first year, with the plan that we would become a Orioles affiliate in year 2. I think the plan was illegal technically, but that was the plan based on the PBA back in the day. But the thought was we'd become an Oriole affiliate just like Frederick and Bowie were prior to us, is that we become a single A affiliate for the Orioles. And so they came up with a bunch of names like every team does, with name the team contest, all that. And there was lots of different names. And really, we're on the shore. And so then they decided we were going to become the birds, meaning the baby birds of the Orioles. So instead of calling us the Eastern Shorebirds, got pared down to Shorebirds, and that's who we are. And then obviously the original logo is a blue heron outline, was the original logo of the team, and the existing logo is still modeled off of the blue heron.
So this is the team was founded, well, or at least they relocated from Albany. They were the Albany Polecats.
Yep.
And then that was 1996 that the Shorebirds started playing. You've been with the team almost a couple of decades. So you were there for that original, like you say, the orange and it's a great blue heron, but the logo is orange and black and sort of a silvery gray. And it's got like a silhouette of like a very like metallic looking silhouette of a great blue heron. And then in 2010, you worked with, I'm thinking probably then Plan B, obviously now Brandiose, on updating this brand. So that was 15 years ago, but you were with the team at the time. What was the impetus for that change? How come you guys changed that brand?
Yeah, I mean, the reality was obviously and we still have the existing logo as kind of our throwback, our original logo. It's in our repertoire. But, in 2009, started working with Jason and Casey, Plan B, now Brandiose. And the goal was that if that bird on that hat jumped out and came to life, what would that bird look like? It was really, that was our only logo, was kind of the silhouette bird that I call it, at least. And really wanted what would that logo look like if you just brought it to life. And then that's where we came up with the kind of 3 or 4 logos that came out of that work that we did with the primary logo, which is a bird head only, and brought that to life. And they're able to really do some cool things. If you actually have the hat and look at it closely, you'll see some stitching in that hat that's pretty unique. Some of the feathering and stuff they're able to do that just on a screen you wouldn't really be able to tell, but if you actually own the hat, it's pretty cool. And so then we wanted to have some variety, because a lot of teams at that point now have variety in their logos. So we developed the D-Bird, as we call it internally, at least, the D-Bird hat that is primarily worn on the road, but really because of the sizing of that logo, it's really kind of become our primary user. It just kind of fits well in a lot of spaces. That hat also has a lot of intricate detail in the embroidery. And then we didn't unveil right away what we now call our Orange Friday logo. We did that logo back in 2010, but kind of kept it in our pocket to unveil later. And I can't remember which year we unveiled it. It was actually used before we ever used it. I believe Kevin Durant did a mashup with one of his Christmas shoes with that logo in a green and red color that we never even had unveiled it yet. So that was pretty cool. And the big move that year that we made was we had your traditional Shorebirds font that pretty much every team across every country ever used, with the name in a script with the tag, the tail coming back towards the beginning. Is I really wanted the Delmarva to come out, and we developed a road jersey that said Delmarva on it. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't have any officially branded merchandise or apparel that the team wore that was actually stating Delmarva, which I thought, again, like you, so cool, so unique that we could wear that gray jersey on the road like you would have in, major league teams, whether city or state on the road. We were just wearing Shorebirds home and road, just different colored uniforms. So it was, really was just trying to bring that silhouette logo to life, and what would it look like if that bird came out of, the silhouette and came to life for us. So
You kind of glossed over something that I think is a really sort of fun part of this story. I forget what you called the logo, but the one that Kevin Durant borrowed
yeah,
for his mashup. It's a The way it's situated on the cap, that as I've seen it anyway, is you've got a very like Baltimore Orioles style tritone cap with orange on the back, a white front panel, and a black brim. And then you've got like a three-quarters version side view of this, very sort of menacing looking great blue heron,
yep.
although he is, like you say, he's orange. And he goes right down to the base of that front panel so that it sort of connects to the brim. So it's a really sort of fun visual, right? Like it's an interesting sort of different looking hat because the logo sort of runs into the brim.
Yep.
But I'm curious, you sort of glossed over this. How did Kevin Durant get his hands on it? What was what was that situation?
Honestly, I don't even know. I just remember one, on the internet somehow or whatever, or somebody shot it to us that it was a Christmas thing. It was green and red that they did a mashup with a shoe. And next thing you know, we just, we find on the internet this shoe and that bird logo kind of paired together. And honestly, don't know the real backstory of how it happened. We just found it on the internet. And the Orange Friday bird that we call it, the goal was to sit that guy right on the brim and kind of give you the effect of maybe that he's sitting in the water or sitting somewhere that, so when the hat's done properly, especially on the on-field hat, it sits right down on the brim. And some of your alternates and some of the other hats you do, it's hard to get the vendor to get you right down on the brim, but with New Era we're able to get it that way. And that was the goal. Is it's a little different kind of touch that if you're not paying attention you might not notice, but for enthusiasts in the hat world, it's something that it's definitely different than others. So
It seems like it only would work with like a flat brim there, right? Like, because I
yeah.
like the dad hat with the curved brim, but it wouldn't sit right on the brim the
Yeah.
same way for that. So you talked about the D bird, and that sort of carries on a storied tradition in minor league baseball of animals coming through the letter D.
Yeah.
You've got the Durham Bulls, obviously, are a classic. You've got the Daytona Tortugas, and of course, you have the Delmarva Shorebirds here. I'm forgetting a few
Denver
there.
Broncos, who commonly get mistaken for the Durham Bulls or vice versa. They always have a little fun stuff going on their social about that logo and the Denver team. So
I have lived in Colorado for a couple of decades, and I've been to a handful of Broncos games. I don't really own any Broncos gear. I'm an Eagles fan, so I don't own a lot of Broncos stuff. But when I go to the Broncos games, I do wear my Durham Bulls stuff, and no one gives me a second glance. It's always
right.
no one has ever commented on the fact that it's not the Denver Broncos. As a bird, and we're going to talk with Baseball by Design's wildlife correspondent Ranger Amy later on in this episode. But the great blue heron as a bird, sort of this tall, lanky, kind of awkward looking bird, right? Like is not, when you think of, menacing sports mascots, understanding that you were not with the team when they decided on that as the bird. Do you know where that decision came from, why they settled on the great blue heron as the shorebird?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a regional thing. When you come to the market, and if you went to a lot of businesses, you're going to find a lot of heron logos in the market. You're going to find a lot of, blue heron artwork and sculptures and stuff like that. So I think it's just a regional bird that, on the surface doesn't look menacing. But I think our goal with the logo is if you look at some of the photos of the great blue heron, whether it's, grabbing a fish or whatever it's doing in its natural habitat, it's pretty sweet. It's sometimes hard to replicate that in a hat or in a logo. But, when we looked at it, I jokingly, I think, said back in 2009, 2010, when we talked about this, if the shorebird was going to take on the Greensboro grasshopper, what would that guy look like? And that's what we're trying to do with, bringing out the silhouette to where we're at now.
When I hear the word shorebird, having grown up going to the shore, my grandmother lived in Wildwood, New Jersey. Like I said, we go to Ocean City now. I hear the word shorebird and I think of, it's sort of a nickname for the person who is down the shore all the time, the
Yep.
person who always goes there. With the preponderance of, sort of wacky alternate identities, certainly not like a full rebrand or anything, but has there ever been the temptation to take on that other definition of shorebird as maybe like an alternate temporary identity?
There somewhat has. We've worked through a bunch of artwork over the years that we haven't been able to like go like that's it,
Yeah.
So we've done a variety of things. Even over the last couple of years, recently, we worked on a lot of different stuff that just never, when you have that logo, you got to be able to locally understand it, but then the guy in Colorado to see it and either question what is that, as you might have with a trash panda, and that concept is like, what in the world of trash panda. And it gets the guy out of state to want to further look up this logo and what it's all about. So we've worked on some stuff, haven't came up with it. There's a term, I don't think this is offensive in any way, but they call them chicken neckers, which are where you use chicken necks to, do crabs. And that's usually what you consider a tourist or somebody that's coming to the area often. They're not watermen, but they use chicken necks to crab, on the shore, on the pier or whatever in the local market. So we've messed around with a bunch of it. Nothing we've come up with yet, though, that we're like, yes, this is it. Let's go.
Well, speaking of hyper local, I can't let you go without asking about one of my all-time favorite super hyper local alternate brands, part of the food frenzy, as it were. You all have played as the Delmarva Scrapple. And for someone who's not from the region, having never heard of Delmarva or not really knowing what Scrapple is, Delmarva Scrapple must just sound like a collection of syllables that makes no sense. We've already talked about Delmarva. Scrapple is a delicious, terrible breakfast meat. First of all, in your words, what is Scrapple, and why did the team choose that as their food frenzy alternate identity?
I jokingly say that Scrapple's the only gray meat. We used to have pork that was the other white meat. Scrapple's the only gray meat. But Scrapple's a regional delicacy that people love. When I moved here, I didn't know what Scrapple was. Growing up, my great grandmother used to make Scrapple in a different way, but that was just on Sunday morning breakfast. You took all the meat scraps from the week and put it in an egg casserole, and it was all the scraps from the week, and that's what you had for Sunday morning breakfast. So that's what I thought it was, and I get here and I find this loaf of meat that's kind of sausagey ish, and people love it. It's on every breakfast table at every restaurant and at home in the market. We did a night a few years before we unveiled the identity, just an I Love Scrapple night, and it was just kind of a tribute to Scrapple, and we didn't have an official logo. And I think I had a local vendor make a T-shirt that kind of looked like the I Love New York shirt, and it just said I Heart Scrapple underneath of it. And it went pretty well, and we didn't really buy them for sale because it wasn't something we were doing to like have a retail play on. And so our staff wore the shirts. We gave them to all the game day staff, and people were like, I'll give you $20 for that shirt right now. And one of our staff members, and that was when Fresno brought out the tacos.
Yeah.
I think the cheesesteaks up in Lehigh. And so we said, all right, well, let's go all in. And there's a couple variations of that logo that were developed. That I didn't want it to be the lifelike version of it that some teams are doing and have done, and I think a team is doing now in that world. But I wanted it to be the actual food product, similar to the Fresno Scrapple or the Lehigh cheesesteaks.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did it. We developed it obviously with the traditional white bread scrapple egg and cheese sandwich that most people would eat on a breakfast morning. And our partner, we have a great partner in that. One of our local scrapple producers is a partner of that night now, and it's really become a fan favorite that we're doing every year. I mean, we do it on a fireworks night, so we always get a good crowd. But the number of we sell on that game, I mean, it's not logo related, but we sell Scrapple pizza, we sell Scrapple sandwiches, sell Scrapple fries. It's just really taken this life of its own, where it's just now how every year do you make it bigger and better, and the merchandise continues to do really well, and the players get a kick out of it, especially because with the makeup of our team, we're probably like 50% international players that have no idea what Scrapple is. And so they're rolling around out there wearing their Scrapple gear, but they get a pretty good kick out of it too.
First of all, I just have to say I can't tell you how hungry I am right now. Like I'm looking at the logo on the hat, and that breakfast sandwich with the scrapple just looks so good. And then I've never heard of it on pizza before, but it makes perfect sense, right? Like why would you not put scrapple on pizza? Like that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So obviously you guys play in the state of Maryland, and it's pretty much the law in the state of Maryland. And I come from a state where this is also the law. The Colorado state flag is on everything. There are a lot of sports teams that use the Maryland state flag in their branding. You all have done the same, yeah?
Yeah, it's wild. Again, not born and raised in Maryland, but have moved here, and just to see the passion that the Maryland folks have with, crabs and the Maryland flag are two big things. And so we've went ahead and incorporated the Maryland flag into our current identities, but our D-Bird logo looks really good with the Maryland flag incorporated into it, as well as our Thursday jerseys that we wear look really good. People love them. And again, it's pretty much one of those things. You slap the Maryland flag on it, and people love it. They're passionate about it, and it's a Maryland thing. And I don't fully understand it personally, but it's something when you're born here they really love.
So one of these days, I'm going to have to do some scientific polling on which state loves its flag the most, because I feel like, I mean, obviously Texas,
Yeah,
California, Colorado, Arizona. When you go to Arizona, you see their flag a lot.
yeah,
Having grown up in Pennsylvania, I could not tell you what the Pennsylvania state flag looks like.
yeah.
I have no idea. So that is fun that you're incorporating that into your branding. It, obviously makes me think of, you've got the now Chesapeake Bay Sox,
Exactly. Yeah,
just down the road. They have you mentioned crabs and the flag, right? Like
yep.
that's what they did with
Yeah,
that
that's
brand
what they
with,
did. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, great look. Yep, with what they've done recently. So
Yeah, that was a big upgrade for them, I think. All right, Chris, one last thing. Just I'm always interested in the Orioles affiliates. There's the tie that their affiliates make to the parent club, and the use of orange, the fact that the Orioles affiliates are all pretty close by the parent club there. How does that affect your branding, your marketing of the team, the relationship that you have with not only your own fans but with fans of the big league club?
yeah, I mean, obviously we have a great relationship with Baltimore as well as the other affiliates. In terms of all four of us, and in the market and in the region, and I think we do try to create a lot of synergy with each other and what we're doing. We're all friends and we're friendly in terms of sharing best practices and those things. And with the Orioles, I mean, this market is an Orioles market. We'd want to be with no other team than the Orioles as an affiliate. We try to separate our identity from them, and that we stand alone on who we are, but obviously have all the nodes that we need to tie that we are an Orioles affiliate, as well as tie what we try to do with our market with, the Scrapple logo, their Maryland flag. When we did the Maryland flag logo, we were a little nervous because obviously we have Delaware and Virginia in the name of our team, and so we're going to offend those. But I think you'll find later this year, I think we're going to unveil some stuff in about a month that kind of ties us even more into the Delmarva region, and some specialty stuff that we have up our sleeve that we'll be unveiling, and a couple of new looks this year for the fans that will be available, be worn on field. And so we're excited about that, and some stuff that just, again, these things take a little time. And now with the way the rules work, you got to kind of work 2 to 4 years out on anything you're doing. And so you can have a great idea today, but it's going to take a couple of years to actually get it on the field.
And you all are located, I mean, we talked about the peninsula being, or I guess the island. I kind of like Delmarva Island as well, since the river
Yeah,
is there, right? Like it's kind of like Cape Cod is technically an island as well, so I kind of like Cod Island.
right. There
Um,
you go.
but you all are, the location of the field itself is technically in Maryland, yes?
Yeah, we're technically in Maryland, and most people would consider us we're the crossroads of the peninsula because we're literally exactly between Route 13 and the Route 50 intersection, which are the main two thoroughfares to get north and south or east and west. So we are at where those two cross and intersect. That's where the stadium is at.
Well, Chris, this has been a lot of fun. It's fun for me to, like I say, explore a team in the region of the country where I grew up. Where can folks find the Shorebirds online and on social media? And if you have your own social media, let us know those as well.
Yep. No, you can find us at theshorebirds.com. So that's theshorebirds.com. That's where you'll find all the information about the team and or be able to shop. All of our social Shorebirds, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those three places are the main three social pages we're on consistently, and putting out what we're doing and teasing people with new logos that are coming up and all those good things that we have going on for the upcoming 2025 season. So,
One last regional question here. When people cheer for the team, do they say "Go Birds"?
yeah, generally it's Go Birds,
Go
and we get
Birds.
the big O during the national anthem, which is
Of
kind of our
course.
thing, right? So the big O during the national anthem and Go Birds, and that makes it nice. Again, we are able to connect back to the big club.
Go Birds indeed. And Chris, thanks so much. And look forward to catching a game in Delmarva sometime.
Absolutely, anytime. Thank you.
All right, everyone, welcome back.
Where did they go?
Where did the listeners?
Yeah, you always say welcome back.
I
They
do
just
say
everywhere.
I do say welcome back. They haven't. No,
They were still in their car.
it was only like
Front.
it's really I'm the one who was gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they should be welcoming you.
They should be welcoming me back. What gives, listener? You should be welcoming me back. Ranger Amy, baseball by design wildlife consultant. We just got back from a trip. #humble brag.
Welcome back to us.
Welcome back
That
to Paris and Morocco.
was amazing.
And I have to say that I feel like perhaps you, being Ranger Amy, may have experienced Paris and Morocco differently than most other people. You're the only person I've ever been to any of those places with
I think I know where this is going.
who experienced, say, Paris, not through the architecture or the artwork or the fashionable people or the incredible food or the Seine River and the Eiffel Tower lit up. You were looking for birds. You were
Just the food.
let's go to the Luxembourg Gardens to look for birds. What is that wood-headed pigeon flying around the Eiffel Tower? It was a pigeon.
It was a wood pigeon.
I think
it's different.
I think it speaks to your commitment to your Ranger Amydom and just
That's
that
DOM, not DUM.
I'm glad you spelled DUMB right. But it does speak to the fact that you are all about birds. You love some
I
birds.
do love my birds.
How many new species did you get in Paris and Morocco?
Ooh, I don't know. I haven't counted them up. Probably 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a bunch. You were marking them
Yeah.
off, and we'd be walking along, and I'd be like, "What are you thinking about?" And you'd be like, "Shh, my app is open. I'm trying to get birds."
The problem is like with this AI stuff and Merlin, this app called Merlin, if anybody is nerdy with birds like me, is that you can just open this app called Merlin and you just hit record and it was like, that's an American robin.
An American Robin in Paris is my favorite play.
Yeah.
But anyway, you love birds. I love the shore. So the Delmarva Shorebirds, I think, should be like the perfect team for us because shore and birds.
Yeah.
The great blue heron
Yes.
is a cool looking bird.
Not a shorebird.
Well, okay, let's hear about that. The great blue heron is not a shorebird.
Yeah, technically a heron is actually not a shorebird. So it's a wading bird. The shorebirds are in a different class of their own, and they're sandpipers, avocets, phalaropes, things like that.
Did you say a wading bird? Like it's wearing a little tuxedo and bringing you your water?
Very good, very good. Yeah, herons are wading birds.
Wading, Wading.
Wading.
Okay.
And like sandpipers, sanderlings, phalaropes, avocets and red knots, things like that.
Cool.
Those are considered shorebirds.
So
like things that like run along the shore.
So it's a wading bird, and so where is it if it's not? I mean, can't you wade in the shore?
You can, but they're usually like in a little bit deeper than the shorebirds. The shorebirds are the little guys that like go back and forth, like the wave is about to come and they're like, no, and they like get out of the way.
Yeah.
And then the wave goes in and they're like, and they scurry into
They're kind of adorable.
They're so cute. Those
Yeah.
those are the shorebirds. And great blue herons are like, nah, they're just wading in the water. They don't care if the wave crashes kind of thing. But
I see. So they're not shorebirds. I mean, you see
But-
herons at the shore.
yeah, it's kind of a technicality.
I see.
Bird nerds, they're just nerdy.
You're being pedantic with us.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
This is the ranger equivalent of, well, actually, you're well actuallying the shorebirds here.
The cool thing about shorebirds that I wanted to talk to you about and play a little game with you is that they have really specialized beaks and legs and feet.
Mhm.
And so that makes them really good at what they do. And so all these little birds that you're seeing running up and down along the beach, they all have sort of like their type of food that they want to eat. And that's the kind of cool thing. Like herons, they're they pretty much eat anything. Fish, they'll eat gophers, they'll eat baby rabbits. I know it's, if you Google that, you'll see some pretty gross videos about people watching their gopher getting eaten in their
Watching
lawn.
their gopher,
They're like
their pet gopher.
pet gopher on their lawn that they've been watching dig holes, gets eaten by a great blue heron. But I have a little game to play with you.
I see that
Are
you have
ready?
brought some props to this audio podcast.
You're gonna have to describe it out loud for
All right.
people watching. So here are some tools. And what do you have here for tools?
A big spoon.
Yep.
A little spoon.
Yep.
Some chopsticks.
Yep.
Tweezers.
Yep. That's it.
The end.
The end.
Okay.
Okay. So the big spoon is, I'm going to tell you, a pelican.
Okay.
That's a pelican
I
beak.
thought you were going to say a spoonbill.
It's either a pelican or a spoonbill.
Okay.
Yes, it can be either.
Aren't you proud of me for knowing a bird?
So proud of you.
Yeah.
Anyway, these are in the chopsticks.
Okay.
They are going to be the American oyster catcher beak.
We know about the oyster catcher.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
The
The
oyster
Chesapeake oyster catchers were the classic
That's right.
crash and burn.
No.
Yeah.
This little spoon, that's going to be your like ducks, things like that.
Ducks. Okay.
Not a shorebird. And then this little guy, the little tweezers,
Yeah.
are the little sanderlings and sandpipers,
Okay.
and also avocets. So
Okay.
those are cool birds. So anyone listening, look them up because they're cool. All right. So right here, I have a totally edible plate of worms in a sandy beach.
Okay. So this is gummy worms in a lot of sugar. What are we going to do with the sugar afterwards?
I knew you were going to ask that. I'm going to put it back in the
Okay.
container. So you have to try all of the beaks and see which one is the better tool for eating these
All right.
things.
Well,
All right.
so I did the big spoon and I got like a bunch of sugar. I got a
Yeah.
bunch of sand
You got a bunch of
along with
sand.
my worm. So
Yeah.
that's not going to work.
No, because that's like when you go and eat like a really
Right.
sandy clam chowder.
Right.
You don't want to eat all the sand in there. You just want the clams.
So now
So that beak didn't real work.
didn't work that well.
This is the duck.
This is the little spoon, and I can do a little better with that, but still get some sand.
Still got sand. Yeah, let's keep on going. What other?
I'm gonna try the chopsticks. I'm excellent with chopsticks, by the way.
Well, so are birds.
Yeah. Look at that.
Yay!
The chopsticks worked great.
That's the winner right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Okay, so the chopsticks are the winner.
Yeah, so that
Wait,
would
let me try the tweezers though. Shouldn't I try the tweezers
you
as
should
well?
try the
No,
tweezers.
Can't open wide enough. I
Uh-huh.
can pinch them. I can. Oh, I can barely get them.
They can
but
you
only-
can barely get them.
but
But
only
look
bites.
at how big your beak is. Do you think you can swallow that?
Oh, I can't swallow that.
No.
My
So,
beak's not big enough.
so that particular sanderlings, like little tiny sandpipers, they're not going to be eating those big worms. But the oyster catchers, they're going to be eating those bigger worms that you find
Okay.
on the beach. So all these birds have their own little niches. Okay, so I've got
Okay, here we go. Oh, now we have a nacho-sized ice cream helmet. It's a Rocky Mountain Vibes ice cream helmet that I just got, actually. I just got this very recently.
That'd be great for the.
Okay, so tell me what I'm looking at here.
This is oatmeal that's
Oh,
been soaked in
Okay,
water
oatmeal and craisins.
and craisins. Yeah.
Okay, so this is breakfast tomorrow.
Yes. This.
All right.
See, I'm not wasting anything. I will eat this tomorrow.
But for the
I knew you were gonna-
purposes
That's
for the
why. Rachel.
purposes of this adventure right here, what are these things meant to represent?
These are the craisins are horseshoe crab eggs, and the oatmeal is wet sand.
Oh, okay.
All right, so now you're gonna have to try to fish those out with
right.
the different things. So,
The big spoon again here.
so big spoon,
Big spoon.
pelican trying to eat horseshoe crabs.
I still got a bunch of wet
You
sand.
still got less, yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to eat a lot of wet
So
sand.
I don't want to eat a lot of wet sand.
No,
All right. What is that again? That's the pelicans?
yes.
Okay. All right. Now I'm trying the smaller spoon.
hmm
It's like just sort of a scaled back version of the issue
Yeah.
we just had.
Yeah,
Those ducks are not eating horseshoe crab eggs.
probably not.
Okay. All right. Now let's try the chopsticks. So these are our like oyster catchers.
Oyster catchers and also avocets.
The chopsticks are not bad for this.
Yeah.
Chopsticks are all right. You can
So
pick
you're
around the
doing
sand and you can
really
get
well.
the raisins.
So if you're a red knot or an avocet, a yellow legs, things
Okay.
like that, then you're going to be able to pick up those horseshoe crabs. Like you can do a number of those horseshoe crabs
Right.
with those chopsticks.
That's right.
If you're a shorebird.
Okay. And
Right.
then
And then lastly,
and then now our tweezers again.
and those are the little sandpipers, sanderlings.
Same issue here. It's hard to grab the craisins, but it does okay.
Does okay.
It does okay. Better than with the worms.
Better than the worms.
What a great visual this has been for our audio podcast.
We are not. We won't.
Oh, we're not done. We got one more left there. All right. Oh, now we got a garlic peeler.
Yep.
Okay.
This is like an enclosed plastic thing.
It's like
is-
rubber cannoli.
Yeah, that's not edible.
Mhm.
And inside is
So you
is
got
a gummy
a
worm.
gummy worm and a slice of
A
cheese.
slice of cheese.
Okay, awesome.
And what that represents is a snail. You have to get it out of the shell.
Oh, I see. So this whole operation is a snail.
Yes.
All right. Now, should I just choose one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know the big
Yeah,
spoon's too big.
Exactly. At this
The,
point,
the
you
pelican's
get
not getting a snail out of its shell.
exactly.
The duck also too big to get that. The tweezers, I think, are going to be too small once again. And so the chopsticks, I think, are the winner here.
I think so.
Do I want the cheese? If I'm this Amoset bird here, do I want
Avocet.
Avocet?
That's pretty good.
Do I want
In this case, you're an oyster catcher.
I'm an oyster catcher.
With
Okay.
with the chopsticks.
All right. Let's see here. So just pulled that worm right out of there.
You got it. Yep.
Yeah.
You got.
So what about the cheese? I want the cheese.
Well, you can try the cheese. So those are like two different parts. That's like a snail is sort of like there's a lot.
It's like a Vegas buffet. Up, ta-da!
Ta-da, you got
I got
both.
it with the chopsticks.
You got everything, and you don't want that shell. That's not edible. That's
No.
so you just want to like reach in there, grab it. Paul is eating the cheese
Oh,
right
cheese
now.
are delicious.
Well, you get to eat those worms. I should have told you you could eat them. I'll eat it for you.
So this has been a lesson in beaks.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I like them. Thanks for buying those gummy worms. I sent them to the grocery store. You didn't know why you're buying gummy
Yeah,
worms.
I was told pick up gummy worms. I had no idea it was from my own podcast.
So now you know that like all these shorebirds, they may all look the same when you're on the beach and you're watching the waves and you're seeing little birds running back and forth. But each bird is sort of made to eat different things. And the reason that you don't see all of the same birds every time you go down the shore is because shorebirds are like the nomads of the bird world. They're not going to like hang out at the Jersey Shore all year, just like you're not. But the difference.
If only, though.
I know you wish that you could.
I would absolutely hang out at the Jersey Shore all year.
But actually, you wouldn't because
Oh.
What is one of the things you like about the Jersey Shore?
Pizza.
Exactly.
Oh.
And then what's your other favorite food to get at the Jersey Shore?
Donuts.
Yeah. And are the donut shops open year round?
Some of them are.
And some of them are closed,
Some
aren't
of
they?
them are closed.
So, and how about like the ice cream stands? They're not open in
They're not
November.
open.
So for the same reason, these sandpipers, they're not going to be able to get food all year round at the shore because their primary reason for being there, and I'm talking now like the Delmarva area, that whole Bay Area is just like infested with like horseshoe crab eggs, but only in that one time of year. And then that's during like the height of the summer. And before then, do you know where they are?
Where are they?
They're actually coming from the Arctic.
Oh.
So there's a huge boom of insects. Like if you were in the Arctic at the beginning of summer,
Yeah.
you'd have to bring a lot of insect repellent because it'd be black flies everywhere.
That's like my worst nightmare.
Yeah, they'd be like little gnats and flies. Well, that's what these shorebirds love, and they're eating the little tiny ones are eating a ton of insects. But then they run out in the Arctic, so it pushes them south. And by the time they get to the shore where you want to be, then the horseshoe crab eggs are everywhere and they eat the horseshoe crab eggs. And then they don't stop there. They keep on going down to the tip of South America.
Wow.
They go about 20,000 miles
That's
in
crazy.
migration.
To the tip of South America. So they go from
South
the Arctic
America.
to the tip of South America?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
I love that.
So these are not residents, just like snowbirds who go to the shore part of the year.
Yeah.
They're kind of just like that. They're nomadic birds.
They travel all the time. And I bet you know what? I bet you they brag about it. I bet you they find ways to like work it into every conversation.
Yeah. They have lots of frequent flyer miles,
Yeah.
these birds.
Guess what?
What?
That's all very cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But guess what? We have a Ranger Amy twofer today.
Twofer.
So I just spoke with Chris Bitters of the Delmarva Shorebirds. When I spoke to Chris Bitters, they had not yet unveiled this very cool and very different Delmarva Wild Ponies brand. And he hinted at it at the end of the interview. He said, "Oh, we have something coming up." Well, that something has been unveiled since he and I spoke. So I wanted to ask you about it. The Delmarva Wild Ponies, they are referencing a pack of feral horses on a herd. Nice. Of feral horses on the Delmarva Peninsula. This herd of wild horses that is part in Maryland, part in Virginia, because horses don't know state boundaries. You've got the Assateague ponies and the Chincoteague horses are the things they call them, I think.
Yeah.
What about that? That's cool, huh?
That is so cool.
Yeah.
You know, I remember as a kid reading Misty of Chincoteague. So like I've known about these wild ponies since I was like 10 years old. And I loved reading these little books because I was a girl who always wanted a horse. And mom,
Just like,
dad,
oh,
if you're listening,
every girl.
mom, dad, if you're listening, thanks for never buying me a pony. I would have rather
Why
had
do
the
bad
pony.
things always happen to you?
Anyway,
But tell us about this herd of horses. Okay.
so horses don't really have any predators in this day and age. They just don't.
Yeah.
In most of North America. And so what happens? They reproduce like crazy, but they are not really wild because they really couldn't live without management.
Okay.
So here's the cool thing that I learned. This year, July 30th, 2025. Are we going to be there?
No, we'll have just left our short trip. Yeah.
Darn it. Okay, so July 30th, 2025 marks the 100th year of the Chincoteague annual pony swim.
Well, what is that? What is the annual pony swim?
So I was talking about the fact that ponies are managed, right? They just really can't live on their own.
Yeah.
If they were left to their own devices, the population would just get huge and they would overtake the island.
Right.
So they have to round up the babies born every year, then they auction them off to nice pet owners and everyone's happy.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to swim them from one island to another, and then they parade them downtown and then they auction them off. So the auction serves two purposes. One, a tourist attraction and money. And two is that it helps to control the overall size of the herds, that the population doesn't get too large, like we talked about. But these, what I love is the saltwater cowboys that have the
I'll bet you do.
the pony that swim the ponies from the one island to the other island.
Well, that is very cool. And then this brand that the Shorebirds did actually features one of these guys like on top of one of the horses, and he's got like his rope, and then so it's like actually like a very like Western feeling brand, even though it's way like literally as far on the East Coast as you can get.
Yeah,
it's a pretty cool brand.
I love they call them saltwater cowboys.
Saltwater cowboys.
I wonder if like their hats get destroyed by the saltwater.
I would think that saltwater cowboys might just be an awesome brand anyway,
right? Because you could call them salties.
Because they've got the Delmarva wild ponies already. They could be they could be the
salties.
The saltwater cowboys.
And in Australia, salties are saltwater crocodiles.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't want to mix up the Australians.
So the first foal to come ashore is named King or Queen Neptune. So the first one that's driven ashore by these saltwater cowboys, and it's given away in a raffle drawing at the Firemen Carnival later in the day. So tickets are sold each night, and then while waiting for the swim, you must have a ticket and you must be present to win. So I could win a pony.
A pony named Neptune.
Neptune.
Named for the Roman god of the sea.
If I won, you would have to let me keep it.
It's true.
I'm not sure where we could keep it in a townhouse.
It would certainly help you fulfill your childhood dreams.
I would love it. I would call it Misty.
Its name is Neptune.
No.
Sorry, that's what they said.
If you adopt it just like a dog, you can change its name.
I don't think so. She's always going to know it's Neptune.
All right, fine.
Ranger Amy, thanks for doing double duty. We'll see you next time. We got more Ranger Amy segments coming up in future episodes. So don't nobody go nowhere.
I love it. And don't worry, I'm going to eat that oatmeal tomorrow.
All right, everyone, welcome back. It's time once again for my favorite segment, your favorite segment, Studio Simon Stumpers. Dan, how's it going? How you been?
I've been good since we last spoke, which was not all that long ago. Are you ready for today's Studio Simon Stumper?
I am ready for the Studio Simon Stumper. The Shorebirds have a lot, as we've discussed on this episode, the Shorebirds have a lot going on. So, I never try to prepare for a stumper, but this time more than ever, I did no preparation.
Speaking of them having a lot going on, one of the things they don't have going on is using the name of their city in their official team name. So with that in mind, our Studio Simon Stumper today asks, which of these three geographic designations that encompassed areas as opposed to an individual city name was most recently employed by an affiliated minor league baseball club? Was it A, High Desert, B, Piedmont, or C, West 10?
All right. So you had the High Desert Mavericks, rest in peace. You had the Piedmont Boll Weevils, who were a Phillies affiliate and had a great little bug of a logo. The West 10, was that like the West 10 Jacks?
I guess I can tell you that it's not going to influence your thinking with regard to what the correct answer is here. The West 10 Diamond Jacks
The
to be
Diamond Jacks.
Diamond Jacks with two X's.
Yeah. I have a helmet from the Diamond Jacks.
An ice cream helmet or
Oh, sorry.
an
Yes, an ice cream helmet. Yeah, thank goodness I don't have 550 regular sized helmets.
I wonder if anyone out there is a full-sized helmet collector. We've never thought about that.
Ed Rivera of the Dad Hat Chronicles was getting into that a little bit, and I don't know if his lovely wife Darla put the kibosh on that or not, but Ed has a few regular sized helmets. I'm not stalling for time here, Dan. I'm familiar with all of these teams. They were all, in the grand scheme of things, relatively recent. I feel like High Desert was definitely more recent than Piedmont. West 10 is a little bit of a wild card for me here because I'm familiar with that brand, but I never wrote about them for sports logos, and so I don't have them like firmly entrenched in my timeline here. High Desert feels like the most fresh brand out of all of those, and so I'm going to say High Desert, but not with the same level of confidence that I had last week when we were talking about Jersey girls pumping gas.
Okay, well, let's see how you did.
All right.
When you say they were all fairly recent, Piedmont feels recent, but unless I was mistaken in my research, it's not as recent as you would think. It has been. Paul is trying to get my attention.
I was going to say perhaps they feel more recent to me just because I know that Kannapolis has trotted them out as an alternate in recent years. So they've sort of revived that brand, and so it's out there in the cosmos, in the ephemera, just because they've used it in their team store and they've done throwback nights. So maybe that's why it feels more recent to me.
Oh, prior to being the Piedmont Boll Weevils, they were the Spartanburg Phillies prior to 1995. Then they relocated to Kannapolis, where they became the Piedmont Phillies for the 1995 season, and then they changed to the Piedmont Boll Weevils, but apparently only from 1996 through 2000, 6 seasons, and we're talking 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Then they became the Kannapolis Intimidators. So that's the one that was used the longest ago, last used the longest ago.
And then your Kannapolis Cannonballers after the Intimidators.
Correct. And then the second most recent, which was still used 15 years ago, surprisingly, again, it feels more recent, but where does the time go? And we're 15 years out from them being the West 10 Diamond Jacks. They were the Diamond Jacks from 1998 through 2010 for 13 seasons,
Okay.
after which they became the Jackson Generals. They did not move. They were always in Jackson, Tennessee, but they decided to go by their city name at that point, a brand identity I happened to have created. The previous one, Diamond Jacks, was done by Brandiose, and if I'm not mistaken, and I don't think I am, it was the very first professional team identity they ever did. I believe. I could be wrong. Oh, by the way, for whatever it's worth, before they were the West 10 Diamond Jacks, they were the Memphis Chicks and relocated to Jackson, Tennessee. And then the Louisville Redbirds moved from Louisville to Memphis and became the Memphis Chicks. And then Louisville then got, I'm trying to think if there was a break that we did not have a minor league team, but then we got the Louisville River Bats, who are now the Louisville Bats, and that has nothing to do with today's question. So what does have to do with today's question is the correct answer, which was your answer, the High Desert Mavericks. They were, they were previously the Riverside Red Wave from 1988 to 1990 and relocated to Adelanto, California, which is part of the Victor Valley metro area. And they played there from 1991 through 2016, 26 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that stadium was, I'd say about 60 or so miles from where I lived in Los Angeles. And I went to a number of games there in what was one of the most Spartan stadiums you can imagine. They had luxury boxes. Well, they were going to have luxury boxes, but I would assume that when they were constructing the stadium, they must have run out of funding for the luxury boxes. So what they had ringing the the front of the concourse were these luxury-sized areas, luxury suite-sized areas that were like 2 or 3 cinder blocks high. So they were actual cinder blocks with nothing in them but folding chairs. And that was their luxury boxes. It was the darndest thing. But the High Desert Mavericks will always hold a special place in my heart because I was wearing a High Desert Mavericks cap when I met my wife.
Ah, how lovely. And all these years later, it's hard to believe that it was as long ago as 2016 that they were contracted by the California League, right? Like is that one of the teams that just went away when the California League shrunk by 2 teams?
Yep, they were here one day, and here's the irony of that. They won the California League championship in their final season and then ceased operations because they got the rug pulled out from under them.
Yeah, along with the Bakersfield Blaze. Talk about a sparse ballpark. That Bakersfield Blaze ballpark was something of a classic. They should make a movie about that place. So, Dan, as always, this has been fun. We'll be back at it again next week. It's been a little bit crazy. At the time of this recording, I am just back from some travels overseas. Very little minor league baseball to be found in Paris and Morocco, so I'm glad to be back here in the United States. Thank you so much for all the work you put into creating these Studio Simon Stumpers, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Okay, you've got a little winning streak going, so I'm looking forward to next week to see if you can keep that streak going.
Yeah, we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, see you then.